23 Clemson is at Virginia Tech, 3:30 p.m. on ESPN. Clemson is a 6.5-point favorite. These two have not played since 2020. That's just sad. These two need to be playing more. Hopefully we can make that happen in the future. I don't have the future schedules in front of me, but come on. Clemson is 8-2 all-time at Lane Stadium, Mac, tied for the best record of any opponent in the venue's history.
Wow.
That is very interesting because it's a very tough place to play. And here's a little sad note for you, Mac. Clemson has played 2 opponents in the top 60 of ESPN's FPI this season, lost to both by a combined score of 67-24. Virginia Tech is number 30 in the FPI. Sorry. I mean,
awesome.
That says what we all know. Clemson has beaten the bad teams they've played, and they've lost to the 2 good teams they've played. That's just how it is. This is going to be interesting for so many reasons, but this is a Dabo coach him up situation, right? Like, what adjustments do we see from week to week? Can the offense get back on track? Do you move some guys around defensively? Do you put some guys back in maybe their true positions? I don't know. Because it's not like this Virginia Tech offense is that scary, especially with Drones and Tootin questionable. But I said this on our pod. I thought Colin Schlee, the backup, looked very capable against Syracuse. So even if it is a backup, I still feel like this is a very capable Virginia Tech offense. Obviously, you want to have Drones and Tootin out there to feel like you can have a better chance of winning the game, especially Tootin.
Right.
So I don't know what to make of that. But this defense, Mac, it just hasn't looked very good, the Clemson defense.
Yeah, no, it hasn't. And it is interesting because, it's one of those things, you see it with your eyes and you're like, don't love it. You see the stats and some of the numbers, you're like, a little better than I thought. And then you dive into even some more of that where, again, when they play the better teams and, what the stats look like then and how much are the stats manipulated based on who they played, it's a weird thing. And I think that what it honestly comes down to, we can dive into wherever you want to go here with this game, but I think the overarching point is really the lines of scrimmage. We just saw Clemson they did have their worst game on the offensive line by far. I mean, guys getting pushed backwards, guys missing assignments, not getting to the right level, not targeting the right guy. And there were a bunch of situations where Clemson was in short situation, whether that's 2nd and 2, 3rd and 2, goal and 2, whatever it was. And they could not convert, and it was bad, and it was not good. You've got offensive tackles getting pushed into your quarterback, Ashton Gelati sacking the tackle and the quarterback at the same time. I mean, it was really bad. It was really, really bad. And so, that's something where, you're kind of raising your eyebrows at, okay, is APR and company about to go off? Aeneas Peebles, and just schematically the things that, Virginia Tech is going to do, knowing, hey, Clemson's going to run the football. I think they're the number 1 rushing offense in the ACC, and so they're going to do that. So how do we try to limit that? How do we try to stop it? Virginia Tech is up there as well. Now, they're clearly a much different team running the football if they do not have Drones, if they do not have Bashal Tootin. But Clemson's given up a ton. So I said I was going to be short on this, but I'm sorry, I got a little long-winded.
We don't need to.
Clemson is 9th right now in conference in regards to stopping the run. That's not good. Like, if I'm Virginia Tech and those guys are healthy or remotely healthy, I mean, I'm running it 45 times. I'm literally loading it up, putting big bodies in and saying, can you stay disciplined enough to stay in your gaps? Are you healthy enough? It sounds like Clemson has a lot of people down on that already shallow defensive line, defensive end area. So I'm testing them. I'm running right at them. And we've got a bunch of 6-7-year guys on our offensive line. Let's see. Let's see what happens. So to me, again, my overarching thing, I'm sorry, I got detailed there. Lines of scrimmage, who can control them on both sides? That will really have a big factor and implication in this game.
Completely agree. And Mac, honestly, Virginia Tech ran the ball well against Syracuse without Bashal Tootin and Kyron Drones. Coney had 96 yards, Malachi Thomas 73 yards.
Who hasn't? Who hasn't run the ball?
Yeah, well, I know it's Syracuse. Schlee had 54 yards. He's mobile. He's mobile at the quarterback position. So we'll see what happens with who they play. But obviously, if Tootin plays, I give Virginia Tech a much better chance to win, and Kyron Drones. I think this needs to be, and this is all Louisville was as well, but it needs to be a big Phil Maffa game. Phil Maffa may be the one piece on this entire team for Clemson that
Mm-hmm.
you really can't say anything about. I mean, dude has brought it every single game. He's so consistent. If I'm missing it, tell me, but I don't think he has a fumble. Like, he's just been solid. And
Right.
it's so weird when you look at this offense, Mac, how much it struggled against Louisville. It just seems so out of character from what we've seen before. They've got to get back to, you talked about it, moving the ball more in the middle, up the field, the side-to-side stuff. It felt like a massive step back. Wesco was back, and you barely saw him. Like, you've got to take some shots. You absolutely have to, especially on the road. You can't just try to dink and dunk your way to a win in Lane Stadium. I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, I don't either. And, good thing for them, it's not a night game. And it will be in the second half, I guess it'll be. But, just the environment, what it means, how different it is.
It still should be rowdy.
Yeah, no question. No question about that. So I'm with you, though, on the dinking and dumping. And just the game plan itself, like, it was so weird because it felt like so much side-to-side stuff, so much – 3 and outs, and yet I look at this, and Clemson ran 101 plays.
I
mean,
know.
that's nuts.
That's what was
it's
wild.
So crazy. It's so wild, and still yet had almost 500 yards. I know a lot of that came in the fourth quarter. I might try to scroll actually and find it. I'm going to talk in circles until I find this because I had the breakdown of the yardage. Here it is right here. So in the first quarter, they had about 70 yards. In the fourth quarter, they had over 200 yards. So,
Wow.
so much of that came
So after I
in
left.
the fourth quarter. Right, exactly. Had two TDs in the fourth quarter. It was desperation time, and they were doing whatever. So it was very weird, and I'll even look in the middle eight because that was probably more telling. They had 100 yards in the second quarter. They had 50 yards in the third quarter.
The third quarter was
so
abysmal.
that's when the game mattered. That's when the game shifted, it felt like, in the third quarter, where it was just Louisville pulling away and really dominating. So it was strange. And, how do you get past that? How do you push the ball back vertically? Virginia Tech has good defensive backs. Eddie Royal thinks 2 of the best in the country. We just saw Louisville have 10 pass breakups in their game. So guys have to get open. You have to scheme them open, but also you as a personal player have to get open and then catch the football. Like, I didn't think Cade had a bad game. I just felt like the windows were extremely tight, and they were playing well. Louisville played well. So obviously Clemson wants to get over this and get back into the winning column. You do not control your own destiny. It does not look good at all that you have any type of road to Charlotte, even with one conference loss. We've said this all year long. You have one loss in conference, you might be done. You might not have a path, just looking at how the schedules lay out. So they would need, I believe, KG. I know there's a tiebreaker and all this stuff, but I think you need Miami or SMU to lose twice. And that's not happening with who those guys have the way ahead. Now, you could argue a playoff run. You run the table, you have 2 losses on the season. There have been a handful of teams. I don't know the stat directly. We'll talk about this on the huddle. But there have been a lot of 3-loss teams in the top 12 over like the last 10 years. So that means you're in, and you only have 2. And so, can you fight, crawl, and scratch for some type of bid? Who knows? But you're going to need help. You don't control anything. You don't control anything.
You better look very impressive in those wins as well. If you and hope South Carolina continues to win and jump up into the top 25. Mac, one thing, well, not the one thing, the many things that hurt you if you're Clemson, the tiebreaker if you're all one loss is common opponents. And all 3 of those teams, SMU, Miami, and Clemson, have played Louisville. And you lost to Louisville, and SMU and Miami beat them. So that's kind of brutal. It's almost like Louisville was the game you couldn't lose, weirdly. But when it comes to this game too, Mac, I'm going to be looking at special teams because your special teams for Clemson has been terrible. They rank 130th in the country in special teams efficiency. We know what Virginia Tech, I know it's not necessarily beamer ball, but we know what they're known for. I feel like you're going to have to make a field goal or something in this game. Like, there may be a time where you need to make a field goal. Can you even get the kickoff? Like, I don't know. And I don't mean kick off. Like, can you get the kick off? Can you get it up in the air? See if it'll go through the yellow things. Like, that's mind-blowing to me. When it comes to the spread, Mac, this is really tough. This number is tough because of, to me, how bad Clemson looked. Virginia Tech, of course, coming off a loss. But I want to add this. Virginia Tech, if they went out, they've got Clemson, by Duke, Virginia. If they went out, they finish 8-4. massive step in the right direction for the Hokies. So this is a big game for them in a lot of ways. Big difference between 7-5 and 8-4.
Yeah.
Call me a homer. I'm going to put my faith in Dabo and take Clemson to cover the 6.5. It just seems like it seems like a small number.
Yeah. Well, I think it's drastically different too. A lot like the Miami situation. Do the best players play?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just,
I feel like
it's interesting. And both seems like I would love if we had like a real injury report. I feel like this one would just be loaded up, and you're just like, dang, this is nuts for really both teams. Obviously, I'm with you as well. I mean, I'm taking the Tigers. I think you hope that was a blip on the radar, and you hope that offense gets going. Defense, relative lost cause at this point. I mean, those guys so talented, can't get in the right direction. I mean, probably, honestly, there's a couple of biggest disappointments of the year. Obviously, Florida State takes that by far.
Absolutely.
NC State, close second, but they've been playing better. And then the Clemson defense might actually be too. I mean, I thought that unit, when you looked at it preseason, had the ability to be the number one team in the country in regards to defense, and they have been relatively the farthest thing from that. So it's unfortunate, and that's just where you are. So it's a situation where you got to take off or get left behind.